God was kind of laying on my heart about fear. And in particular with fear, and it was just this morning, and sometimes, when you're in that mode, it's like, it's getting close to time to wake up, but you're not quite there. You kind of get in that little la zoom with it. So at that point, he kind of laid it on my heart to talk about this, but it wasn't so much as fear. It was fear in the sense of not doing something because we're afraid of what the result might be, or we're afraid we might fail. It was that type of a fear. It was fear in that context. And so Mark 5:36 is what was actually what I posted this morning. And this is the American Standard Version, but it says, "But Jesus, not heeding to the word spoken." So in this verse prior, we're actually going to go into this. I just wanted to hit zero. This is kind of the focus scripture we're going to get to. You'll notice it says 36, so we're going to jump through some stuff pretty quick, all right? Don't worry, you're not going to be here all day. But he said unto the ruler of the synagogue, "Fear not, only believe." So Jesus is making pretty clear now, fear is going to stop a lot of the goodness of God from happening. And we've seen that so many different times. So I'm going to just work backwards here. So this is the beginning of the chapter. Now there's a total of like 42 verses, and you think, you'll be fine. We'll zoom through this pretty quick. So they came to the other side of the sea, into the country of Gerasenes, and when he, Jesus, was come about of the boat, straightway there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. So Jesus is on the boat, lands, boom, this guy comes out with him. This guy had been dwelling in the tombs, and no man could bind him, not even with a chain. So this guy would, they try to chain him, and he'd break him supernaturally, right? Just a strength that just didn't make sense for regular humans. Because that he'd been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains is rent asunder by him. This says ASV. I don't like this version. And it's more like King James. They got the funky King James stuff. They rent him asunder, and the fetters broken to pieces, and no man had strength to tame him. There's just like I said, the guy was nuts, right? He was possessed. And always, night and day in the tombs in the mountain, he was crying out and he was cutting himself with stones. Now, how many people know or have heard of people who cut? Right? If you guys, at least you've heard of it, if you've not been firsthand with it. One of the things that you need to understand with, because you're thinking, cutting, how could somebody do that to themselves? Well, the problem is when what happens is they feel such a level of guilt and pain and suffering when they actually cut themselves. The pain that is induced, by cutting. They're not trying to cut a risk to commit suicide. But they're cutting, which hurts, obviously, right? They're cutting because that pain is actually a release for them. It releases them from that torment that they've been in emotionally with the pain. And of course, when I'm working with them, I say, look, Jesus shed his blood for you. You don't need to shed your blood. That's the path I take down there with him on that. But that's just to help you understand that. So that's what this guy was doing. In other words, it's not of God, right? Cutting yourself like that is definitely not of God. It's driving him crazy. So as always, day and night in the tombs, he was in the mountains, he was crying, cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshiped him. So this is fascinating. So this is the guy that's possessed by demons. Yet the human side of him, the unpossessed side of him, saw Jesus as, hey, this guy can help me out. Now, we'd have to presume I can't make a presumption with this because remember, Jesus came over on the boat and came with this. It's hard pressed to think that this guy knew of Jesus, that he heard about Jesus. I guess he was elated that somebody was coming, right? It's like, cool. Maybe the demons drove him to Jesus saying, let's go get this guy too. We've been beating up on everybody else. Let's go get him. And so he was crying out with a loud voice and he said, okay, this actually explains what I was just wondering. And crying out with a loud voice, he says, what have I to do with thee, Jesus, the Son of the Most High? I adjure thee by God to torment me not. So what's happening there is this guy who's possessed by demons recognized Jesus as the Son of God. And he pretty much went there and said, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Don't be messing with me. I'm having a party in this guy's body. Don't be messing with me. For he said unto him, Jesus said, come forth, thou unclean spirit, come out of the man. And when he asked him, what is your name? They answered, my name is Legion, for we are many. So this guy didn't have just one demon tormenting him. There was a host of them hanging out. Party time, right? Hey, let's hang out here and let's really make this guy go nuts. And he besought him much. He would not send them out their way out of the country. And now there was on the mountainside, there was a great herd of swine feeding. And they besought him saying, send us into the swine that we may enter them. So Jesus could have easily said, all right, you demons, I'm casting you back to the pit of hell. But the demon said, I'm going to go to hell. It's more fun here on earth, hanging out and tormenting people. So he said, send them into the swine. So Jesus gave them leave. He said, sure, go ahead. So the unclean spirits came out and they went into the swine and they rushed down the sea. And there was about 2,000. Imagine this now. Can you even imagine 2,000 pigs? Think of the number of that. That's a lot, right? 2,000 pigs. And the evil spirits just drove these pigs insane. And that's where they ended up drowning. And those people that fed the pigs, they were told about in the city, and they came out to see. And so when they came to Jesus and they saw him with that man who was possessed, and he was clothed in his right mind. I think it's an important thing to mention there. Clothed. This guy was naked, all right? He was nuts. He was naked, chained up. I mean, he's just breaking chains, actually. And they saw him in the right, and they were afraid. Remember, we're talking about fear, right? So in this case, they were afraid. And they that saw it declared in him how it befell him possessed with demons and concerning the swine. So in other words, they were amazed. And they began to beseech him to depart from their borders. Now check this out. Jesus just sets this guy free, an awesome miracle. But all these people were looking at as 2,000 pigs that died. So they said, you just wiped out my way of living. Just off you go. Off you go. Thanks a lot. Nice seeing you. And so they asked him to leave. And as he entering into the boat, the guy that he just set free from demons, he wanted to go with them. But Jesus said, look, go into the house. In other words, be a testimony. You've been healed. You've been healed, be a testimony. Go share your testimony is what he was saying, for he's had great mercy. And so he went his way and began to publish, aka speak about it, in Decapolis and about the great things Jesus had done for him. And everyone just marveled because, of course, everyone had heard of this nut job, right? This guy had been going with it and said, yeah, I'm the guy. Really? You're the guy. And when Jesus had crossed over in the boat into the other side now, there was a great multitude gathering. So Jesus is getting pretty popular now because of all his miracles, the miracles and the healings. So there came one of the rulers of the synagogue, and it was Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet. Now this is pretty significant. The rulers of the synagogue, they weren't really fond of Jesus messing with, their all the cool benefits they got, right? Think of it this way. Think of it as our political system, all right? Go and think of all the politicians, and somebody wants to go ahead and mess up all their cool little bennies and fringes they're getting. It's like, they don't. Oh, I don't like what you're saying. We want to keep it our way, so I can keep rich and I can keep doing what I want to do, and all the other garbage that politicians. There are some good ones, obviously, but as a general rule, don't. So anyway, so this is significant. So essentially, a politician, if you will, came to Jesus and he says, "Hey, look. I've seen you heal people." He humbles himself before Jesus. And he says, "My little daughter is at the point of death." He said, "So please come and lay hands on her so that she may be whole and live." And Jesus went with him, and a lot of people followed him. So as Jesus is walking along, and you've heard this one a lot, but that's why I like this whole chapter. There was a woman who had an issue of blood for 12 years. All right. So for clarity on that, her body was was a wreck, right? It's not supposed to happen like that continuously for 12 years. It's supposed to be done every 30 days or so-ish, right? So she had suffered many things from the physicians. She spent all her money, and instead of things getting better, it just kept getting worse. And she had heard about Jesus, so she came in the crowd and touched his garment. Now, I love this one. For she thought, if I touch him, all I got to do is touch him, I'll be made whole. Now, she didn't have fear, did she? See, the fear would be a woman like that would normally be given a garment by the high priest, and that the priest to show, hey, this woman is not clean in the Jewish culture. Stay away from her. She's not clean. So here she is going in, knowing all these things. He said, that's it. If I just touch the hem of his garment, I'll be made whole. And straight away, meaning like now, the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of this plague. And straight away, and I love this, straight away Jesus perceived in himself that power proceeded for him, and he said, "Who touched my garments?" Now, keeping in mind, Jesus, as he's walking along, he's crowded, people are shoulder to shoulder. It's not like you got wide open space. So, but Jesus, I love that. He felt the power. Now, I've had the privilege of praying for people at times where I can feel, I feel the power. I feel exactly what Jesus is talking about here, which is so cool to read this. He says, "Who touched my garments?" And the other thing that's cool about that is this shows the humanity of Jesus. This shows how human Jesus was. Jesus, as walking as a God, could easily say, "Oh yeah, that woman behind 3 rows back, went and touched me." But no, that wasn't it at all. Jesus is showing how human he is at this point. And his disciples said unto him, "You see all these people, how can you ask who touched me?" And he looked around, and he's about to see her that she had done this thing. With the woman fearing and trembling, knowing what had been done, she came forward now and fell down before him and told Jesus the truth. And Jesus said to her, "Daughter, thy faith has made you whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague." thy faith has made you whole. See, when we pray for people, our job is pretty much to be the cheerleader. It's to help build their faith so they can receive from Jesus. Lord knows they don't receive from me. It just doesn't happen like that. It does not happen like that. And while he spoke, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house saying, so remember Jairus up early on who came forward from the synagogue. Jesus was on his way there, so all this stuff has happened along the way. He said, look, my daughter's dead. The daughter's dead. Why trouble this teacher any further? But Jesus heard that, and he said, fear not, only believe. All right. So in the natural, in the world, in the eyes of the world, this daughter now is dead. They said, don't bother Jesus anymore. He can't do anything. Well, Jesus said, well, yeah, I can. And that's what happens. Fear not, only believe. We're almost done. And he suffered no man to follow with him. So he only allowed Peter, James, and John to follow with him. They came to the house of that ruler of the synagogue, and many were weeping and wailing. And that was very common in the culture. As a matter of fact, if you didn't have a lot of family, one of the things was they would actually hire people to do the weeping and wailing for you. Because that was part of the culture thing. Oh, there needs to be lots of weeping and wailing. And when he was entering in, he said unto him, why make you a tumult and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeps. Now, this is great. So they laughed him. They laughed at Jesus. Jesus said, look, she's not dead. She's just sleeping. Now, we've seen people, we've been next to people. Sadly, we've seen dead people, right? We've gone to funerals. We've seen all that stuff. I mean, so everybody, I know dead. That's dead, And they laughed at him, of course. But he sent them all out. He took the father of the child and the mother, and they went in, and he took the child by the hand. And he says, Talitha kumi, which interpreted says, damsel, young girl, arise. Jesus spoke the word in the same way. You remember at the beginning of the creation of the world, God said, let there be light. Or some interpretations say it, light be, is what God spoke. That's exactly what Jesus said here. He said, life be, arise. And straightway she rose up and walked, and she was 12 years old. And they were amazed straightway with a great amazement. And he charged them that no man should know this, and he commanded that she should be given something to eat. Now, this is kind of interesting. Jesus is, a couple different times after some healings, it's exactly what he's told him to do, give him something to eat. Isn't that interesting? Why do you think Jesus would tell him to give him something to eat? Strength, right? Strength, prove that they're really alive, prove that they're doing okay. Because, when we're not feeling well, we don't want to eat, we don't want to drink, we don't want to do all that stuff. So Jesus goes and goes through there. You made it. You made it through an entire chapter. Woohoo! All right. There's a lot. Well, there's a lot in there. But a lot of neat stuff. It's an awesome Mark 5 chapter. Yeah. So you guys probably have plenty of things to share and talk about with all the other yonders here. Talk about fear, right? You guys talk amongst yourself with fear or lack thereof, because you're doing well, I can see. That's awesome. And I am going to go ahead and get some communion and stuff ready. So I'll be back. Thank you.
When he told you you're not good enough, when he told you you're not right, when he told you you're not strong enough to put up a good fight, when he told you you're not worthy, he told you you're not loved, when he told you you're not beautiful, you'll never be enough. A liar, he will take your breath, stop you in your steps. Fear, he is a liar, he will rob your rest, steal your happiness, cast your
fear into the fire. 'Cause fear, he is a liar.
When he told you were trouble, you'll forever be alone. When he told you you should run away, never find a home. When he told you you were dirty, and he told you should be ashamed. When he told you you could be the one, the grace could never change.
Fear, he is a liar. He will take your breath, steer in your steps. Fear, he is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal happiness. Cast your fear into the fire. 'Cause fear, he is a liar. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, love is all I feel. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I feel. He will take your breath, stop you in your steps. He is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal